Yep, I think we did. Now look at that. And then we just balance it out. And one last one. Development. Next, no crop. And rotate. There we go. There we go. And I can probably crop it maybe something like this. And look at that. All right, now this ends up on Match.com. I'm not gonna be happy. All right, but I mean, look. Think of this as split toning. Right here. Think of this as split toning. All right, so I can actually split tone the images and have it on set. So that's what we're gonna do with the portrait stuff. Let me go on real quick. If any of you talk about creativity on the tech stage, because there's kind of been this merger, like the art side of broadcast has always been present, it's always graphics have always been an integral part, but now it's really starting to merge with practical sets. And I think that's a really exciting time, especially as a graphic artist. So what we're going to be talking about today is world building. And I think where our two worlds start to meet is for years as graphics artists, we've been creating these fantasy environments, these huge metal structures, these crazy sports center arenas, and now with virtual sets and capabilities, those are becoming actual practical environments. And as you start to go around the show floor, you see this technology of AR, VR, and augmented reality. And I think it's really exciting that the virtual world and the real world are merging into one. And I actually think there's a really good potential here to push this in a way that is really innovative, really creative, and makes for a really dynamic broadcast. So I want to talk about world building, which is something that we think about all the time. We create these virtual sports graphics worlds from scratch, and we always do these really imaginative, futuristic things, and we're finally going to bring them into reality with sets. So I want to talk about it through the lens of set design. So we have the Sports Center set. That's the original Sports Center set from 1979, and now we have the Sports Center set now. And I think what's really interesting about this is that Sports Center set looks like a spaceship, and we have normalized that. A viewer turns on to watch their sports news, and someone is reporting about basketball from a spaceship, and no one bats an eye at that. That has become normal, and we've incrementally got viewers there, right? We've educated over the years, and it's a more dynamic broadcast. But I think as we push into the future of what VR and AR sets can be, as we go to build these worlds, we can take it even further. That spaceship is still confined by physics. It's a real set, meaning it has things like construction cost, material cost. It can't animate. That is no longer a limitation as we start to unlock these VR things. And the 3D artists, we've been working in these worlds forever. We've been making graphics that sense and respond to change. When graphics were first put into air, they just dissolved up. The score came above the broadcast, and then it dissolved back down. Nowadays, every graphic animates on, with a little twist and turn, the score comes up, clarity across it, and then it packs itself up and moves out. Sets can do that too. Sets can sense and respond to change, they can be animated, and can have a dynamic broadcast. The potential of what a broadcast experience can be doesn't need to be tethered by reality anymore. And as you walk around the show floor at NAB, you'll see a million demonstrations this, and of course the tie back is Maxon is designed to create these futuristic worlds. And I think the really important thing there is futuristic, because there was always the first challenge when virtual sets came along. The like bar for success was, let's make sure it doesn't look like a virtual set. We got there. We can render realistic mahogany, no problem. We can make it look real. The challenge now is not let's make it real, is what is the best possible product? What is the most interesting and dynamic set that we can build? Reality be damned. And I think that's a really exciting space to be in. And again, before this sounds too far-fetched, we went from that to a spaceship, and that's normal. Once viewers get used to this really dynamic and engaging environment, that will be the expectation. Let's think about what can make the best possible broadcast, not what has reality done before. So I'm just going to show a couple of case studies, examples of like how we got there. So this is esports a while back. This was a pitch. It didn't ultimately get selected. It's a pretty simple example. And you can see there's those rings in there that animate, right, as we change camera angles. We don't need to go full Transformers with this sets. We don't need to scare audiences right out the gate, but we can still have reactionary sets that change and rearrange in a mild way that's still pleasant. You can't move 10-ton pieces of steel in reality, but as virtual sets take over, we can. We can build new worlds that are in an exciting new way. But I think we can even take it a step further. So this is a graphics package that we did for Sports, WNBA, and it's a pretty traditional graphics package in the sense it's a large arena, an imaginative space with a lot of lights and flares. Run that back. I'm going to play that again. But I think what's interesting about that space that we developed that to be visually appealing, not to be a functional space. But when we look back at it, we're like, how sweet would that be as a set, as a virtual set? And you can take it even a step further, where your graphics package, which was always this exaggerated animation, could be the same environment that your set lives in. Those don't need to be different spaces anymore. And I think what Maxon does really well in these tools, the art tools have always been about building this imagination first and creativity first, and then reality comes later. And now we don't have to differentiate between those, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm just going to show. Oh, I can run it back. How cool would it be if talent was walking in there, like that animation airs, and then the talent comes walking in to talk about the broadcast? Maybe a little over the top, but I think also people look at it and be like, okay, that was pretty cool. I'm going to show, this is the build for it. And again, the tools that this 3D software has is designed around art and multiplication. You can design these things, these spaces in a way that don't think about architecture. It's a different paradigm of thinking, which I really like. So this is just a demonstration. There's 1,000 basketballs with these cloners, and all these artistic tools have been made to make a visually unique and rewarding experience, not practicality. And I think as we move into set design, let's blow the lid off this. Let's bring art into our practical sets. Just a couple other examples. I thought these were fun because a couple of these are actual sets, virtual sets, and then a couple of these are motion graphics. And I don't really think we need to differentiate between them anymore. The bar for success for what sets can be and what's possible with these tools going forward isn't what reality is capable of, it's what's the most dynamic and interesting product. And I think the visual software is a great landing place for this, because that's what it's been doing for years. This visual software that Maxon 3D has been focusing on creating interesting and dynamic worlds, not just what's possible. And that's what I want to do in the future. So let's make some really cool sets. That's all I got to talk about, guys. That was it.
Out as we look at some of the new and emerging technologies. It's a separate group from the Standards Committee, which is really the foundation of SMPTE over the last 40 plus years. So what we're looking at is what are some of the best practices, not what standards can we set up. The first thing that we looked at was looking at the emerging on-set virtual production workflows. We started off by first defining kind of what that workflow looked like, and as you can see here, there's a wall chart here that you can go and download from the SMPTE site. If you go to SMPTE.org and look up in the upper navigation bar, you'll see the RIS up there. This wall chart was about a year's worth of effort, kind of coalescing what we felt were some of the workflow steps and some of the groupings of effort that were in on-set virtual production. From that, our next year, we started looking at each of the individual steps from on-set, and we worked forward on that looking at first camera and lens metadata. What did that mean in terms of on-set virtual production? So this was data that would be captured that would tell us about the different aspects of the media that was being recorded, as well as aspects of the lens, be it the zoom settings and focus, apertures, things like this that we wanted to bring in and then capture all that. So we're trying to find out what is really necessary to capture in those efforts that we then need to pass on into ultimately the render engine that we're going to be doing real-time rendering in the virtual production space. So we published a paper at NAB this last year that was the first effort on this. We're going through a series of what we call sprints, where we're trying to work in small little chunks in very defined timelines to try and continuously output information. Currently, we're in 2 sprints. We're looking at the next step from the metadata on the camera, and that would be tracking metadata. Where is the camera in space relative to all the other objects in space as well? And what information do we need from that? And what is the best way to acquire and manipulate that information? Additionally, running concurrent with that is the idea of color. Now, this is where it gets very exciting, because color management has traditionally been a science that's been used in the post-production realm. But as we've seen with the utilization of on-set virtual production and in-camera visual effects, a lot of what was done in post-production is now happening in real time. So we have the render engines on set that are taking all the data, rendering the proper aspects out, and putting those back on the LED walls. And color is a very important part of that. So the discussion is, well, where does that take place? Does that take place in the camera with the lookup table? Or does that happen on the wall? Do we actually manage a color before it gets acquired by the camera? Or do we continue to push it downstream into a post-color management scenario? All of these are things that we discuss on our regular meetings for the RAS. And we hope to be publishing, again, a series of papers on the camera tracking and the color at NAB again in Las Vegas in April. If you'd like to be a part of this opportunity, you can go to the RAS website and submit an application to participate. We're looking for both professionals and, as you can see, vendors. We do participate in this as well. It helps us to provide back information as well as understand some of the feedback from how some of the field, how the operations are being done by the professionals in the field. So this is a regular, ongoing, scheduled series of meetings. They generally happen every 2 weeks for the sprints to look at the data, and then once a month the overall group comes together. Along with the actual workflow, we have an education substream that's also a work stream that's also looking at how we outreach to the educational community, get the knowledge out there to the incoming professionals, as well as help our existing professional base get new knowledge or new work ideas. And then finally is some of the outreach to other organizations, and some of that is through our wall chart, which is going to be growing recently. In the recent meetings, we've identified that we're going to turn this into a interactive component. So as you roll over it on the website, you'll get more detailed information. You can click through it. But part of that as well is working with what we're going to hear about now, and that is the open the services organization. So I'll pitch to Chris here.
Yeah, thanks, David. And so, as you mentioned, the RIS has really 2 different components, right? And they sound eerily similar, which is perhaps unfortunate. But so you got the OSVP part for the virtual production, not to be confused with the OSA part, which talks about services and interoperability between media services, making everything work well together. And so, I think we trace a kind of similar history. The OSA group's been around about 4 years now, most of that being pandemic time.